Yeah, I was pretty pleased with last weekend. Northwestern has one of the better offenses that you're going to see in college baseball, and certainly in our conference. And so to be able to go up there and continue to pitch the ball well was big for us. We played good defense, especially on Sunday. I thought our defense was really good on Sunday, and obviously had a lead in the eighth on Saturday and had a chance to win it, and weren't able to finish it off. But overall, I thought we played pretty solid across the board, and some of those young guys continue to grow and perform at a high level. So I was really pleased with that, and certainly with Minnesota coming to town here, it's a big week for us. It's a big work week. It's a big practice week. We scrimmaged yesterday, had a really good day, and it's just they're all big now. So you kind of get past the halfway point, and the ball kind of gets rolling downhill, and it's time to grow up, and it's time to play good baseball, and we're going to have to do that. So I appreciate everybody coming on today.
John, Carl, then Tom.
Gabe Bierman, I think he had something like 9 walks in his first 2 starts. I think it's something like 8 in his last 4. Seems like he's just trending in the right direction. What have you seen from him in terms of why he's been so much better in these last few starts as opposed to the beginning of the season?
Well, he had a little bit of tendonitis in the fall, nothing big, but so he missed the whole fall. So he missed last year, he missed the fall, obviously, and then so he's ramping it back up. Where a lot of those guys have 6 months under their belt ahead of him, he's ramping it up into the spring, and so a lot of the kinks that get worked out in the fall, he didn't get to work out. And the second thing is, and I talked about it with him, and Justin talked about it with him, because I was with him for a couple starts when Justin wasn't. So uh, he's a sinker baller, and when you're a sinker baller, you have to get over. People are going to make contact. You can't throw like the perfect fastball, the invisible fastball that guys just continues to swing and miss at, although he has gotten those. But you just have to, and it's a weird thing. And I pitched in college before I hit in college, and it's a weird thing when someone says like you have to let somebody hit your fastball. It's like, no, I don't want to do that. That's the opposite of what I want. And so you would see the misses. You would see some of his misses early. They would be to the open side of the batter. So if it was a lefty, it'd be to his arm side. If it was a righty, it'd be to his glove side, consistently with his fastball. And he was trying to throw just this perfect fastball, which is a really hard thing to do when the ball moves as much as his does. And so getting Justin back certainly helped. Having a few conversations kind of behind the scenes, like you have a really really effective pitching the way that you pitch. It's like you're not McCade, you're not Tommy, you're not Matt Litwick, you're Gabe Bierman, and be the player that you are, because it's a terrific player. And you do have a weapon in your changeup that's an equalizer to everyone else's weapons. Like everyone has unique abilities, and yours are unique and really good as well. But no one swings at a changeup when the fastball isn't established for a strike, because the changeup doesn't play up when the fastball is not a pressure pitch. And so as he was able to really attack with a fastball and just throw sinkers down the middle, like when I hear Justin call in the little walkie-talkie to the catcher, it's like sinker middle, sinker middle, sinker middle. And now he's continuously in an 0-1 count. He's in a 1-1 count. He's in a 1-2 count. And now that changeup really plays up. And when the changeup plays up, then the fastball plays up, because now I always kind of joke, it's like planting a kind of it sounds bad, but like a bomb in the back of a hitter's mind, because it's like at any point in time that can go off. It's like, is this a fastball or changeup? And now we make really bad decisions. And then once a guy goes back to the dugout and says, hey, he's got a plus changeup, I couldn't see it, I just swung over it, it's like invisible. Now the whole rest of the dugout's talking about it. And so you can see as he's forced contact and then allowed everything else to play up, then he actually gets the swings and misses off of that. So he's done a really good job, and obviously we've been really proud of him. And he's been dominant. He's been dominant, been really, really good, and giving us a chance to win ball games, which is huge. Obviously on Sundays, to have a guy that you feel like is the equal to your Friday and Saturday guy, it just whatever day that he ends up throwing on, they're all equal is a huge thing for our team.
Carl, Tom, then Griffin.
Coach, you played the same 8 position players and designated hitter pretty much all weekend without pinch hitters. And this was even with a left-handed starter by Northwestern on Sunday. And this was kind of a departure from the past weeks. What was your thinking with that?
Well, we had gone into the weekend with Van Pelt. I thought he had a good couple of weeks, and we had kind of gone through you kind of go through the guys, and you circle back around, and we liked Tyler in the matchup. And we had thought about doing some different things against the lefty going into the weekend, but Tyler had played so well, especially on Saturday. He had just played so well that it's hard to take a guy out of the lineup that had been so productive. It's something that we need from a DH spot, and he's not going to strike out a ton. He's going to put the ball in play, and he gets down the line really well. So he allows you to put a lot of pressure on the defense. And when it's not, the lefty on Sunday does a good job. He does a good job, but it's not overpowering stuff. It's not 90-93 with a plus slider from the left side. Like, he's going to finesse and pitch, and he has good numbers, but we felt like Tyler could manage that situation against him. And we've talked about it from the beginning, without having the season last year, with having an abbreviated fall ball, it's just hard to tell what your lineup really consists of. And with so many young guys, you want to get a chance to get guys in there and see what you have with no preseason and no midweeks. You just don't know what you have. You look at Morgan, who's been consistently playing right field for us. His numbers against right-handed pitching were abysmal to start the season. Against lefties were terrific. And so you finally you kind of slowly get him in there and give him a little bit more of a chance, and he's really done a nice job the last couple of weeks. But he wasn't in that frontline rotation to start the season. But you kind of work all those guys in until you see who kind of grows up and who plays well in the midweek. And ultimately, you'd like to have a consistent lineup. I would like to have a consistent lineup. The players would like to have a consistent lineup. The guys who are playing every day want to know who's in there and who's not. I do think the competition keeps everybody on their toes, knowing that you got to show up to work every day, and you got to show up to have good at-bats and play good defense, or someone else take your job. That's how the world works. That's how the world works in all of our jobs. So I think it's good for them to feel that pressure, but at the same time, know that if they go out and do what they're supposed to do, that they're going to be in there consistently. So as far as right now, we're going to keep things, rather similar, unless something dramatic changes, and then we'll make adjustments off of that. But that's always been the plan, is to try to find some semblance of consistency. Maybe you move a guy up or down the lineup a little bit, but nobody likes to play the guessing game, and neither do I. And the guys have a chance to win need to play, and hopefully we're there.
Tom, and then Griffin.
Hey, Jeff, wanted to talk to you a little philosophy thing. You just had mentioned how Tommy and McCade and Gabe have all been comparably good lately. And I was thinking back, like that Ohio State Sunday when Gabe was so good, and then the following weekend, Sunday got rained out. There's plenty of rest involved, I guess, everywhere anyway, from start to start. But was there any consideration of kind of altering the order of when they pitched Friday, Saturday, and Sunday when Gabe missed Sunday, or no?
Yeah, no, we talked about if that would help anybody else from just a rest standpoint, if one extra day here or there would help guys. And so we always talk about those things. It's a great point that you bring up. You're always, anytime you have a day off like that, would it be beneficial to move guys around, not because of it's a better or worse matchup, but because would it be good to give Tommy a day off, or a day more, another extra day, or to give McCade an extra day or something like that. So we talked about it, and everyone was healthy, and everyone felt good. And we liked the kind of the way the weekends have worked on the mound, and we felt good about where we were at. So we decided to stay with the rotation. But yeah, it was a conversation to have for nothing more than just to make sure everybody was having as much time as they needed to be healthy. And, you look at Tommy's pitched on the weekends before, obviously, but not an entire season like this. McCade's certainly never been a starter for anything to this degree, and neither has Gabe. And so this is all their first time, although they've been weekend starters, Tommy and Gabe, they haven't been over the length of a season that we're going to end up going over. So you have to manage workload, you have to manage innings and pitches, obviously, and also if you have a chance to flip some guys and give them extra days, that's always an opportunity to keep guys fresh, but we didn't feel like we needed it at this point. That's a great question.
Griffin, and then back to John.
Yeah, Coach, just kind of wondering where your confidence is right now with the bullpen. I know Matt Litwicki got some action and pitched really well. And obviously on Saturday, though, you guys weren't able to hold the lead. I guess what makes Litwicky a really effective pitcher? Why do you have so much confidence in him, and what's your kind of confidence overall in the bullpen?
Well, it helps when you throw 100. So that is a big that's a big thing. No, I'm obviously kidding, but the thing about Matt that's really allowed him to be incredibly effective, besides the just the pure octane, is he's varied his fastballs. So if you look at Northwestern's is a terrific offense. I mean, look at statistically speaking, I think they hit 45 home runs going into this past weekend. They're all 4th and 5th year guys, but he's throwing a sinker. It's 97 to 99 miles an hour. And there's some guys that are on it, and he flips over to a four-seam fastball for the strikeout. And that it's just a game-changing pitch, to where almost the four-seam fastball becomes a strikeout, like an off-speed pitch. And then he has the slider. So he almost has 2 off-speed pitches as a variation off of the sinker. So if you have a righty and you can go sinker in, sinker in, sinker in, it's really hard to elevate that pitch. And then you can go to a four-seam fastball away, and it plays up like a swing and miss, which is what he did to, I believe, Rustich. He struck him out on a slider and then on a four-seam fastball after a few foul balls. So those things really help with him. The variation of it, outside of just the stuff, the variation of the fastballs has been big. And I have incredible confidence in our bullpen. Obviously on Saturday, there was a lot of conversation back and forth and what we wanted to do. And we felt like going into the weekend, we thought the fastball, the four-seam guys, with some of again, with their power and the numbers they've had, a lot of times the guys that pitch up in the zone are more effective against those kind of teams. And the sinker ballers are the guys that get hit because they have a little more, not length, but like there's a little more depth to the swing, and they're able to get down underneath sinkers. And so those guys normally get hit more. And the opposite, if it's a steeper team that's like no hand independence, those guys will really struggle against sinker ballers because they swing on top of everything, but they're tighter to forcing fastballs. It was interesting because the inverse was true. Tommy's kind of a unicorn because the changeup, you can't get a read on a Friday because Tommy can beat both kind of offenses. But McCade got hit a little bit more than he normally does, and so it became apparent that they were going to be able to handle the four-seam fastball, which was a bit surprising. And then so we went to Tucker for the sinker, and he was really good. And it became now obvious that they struggled with the sinker more than the four-seam, the opposite of expected. And so you go into that 8th, and it's like, do you like Tucker or do you like Modugno? And you're going to go up, there's some lefties in the lineup there. And so Tucker's changeup had been really effective. And several of the balls they put in play were on changeups. They just kind of snuck through the 4-hole, and they're just a good offense. So yeah, there was some conversation there, but our bullpen has been terrific. I think after the weekend, I was looking like a 181 batting average against our pitching staff, which is an incredible number, partly because we play 3 games. And so let's be honest, you stack those guys up. And so we've got the depth of the staff to stack up on 3 games a week to make it really, really difficult. But also it's because we don't have to extend our starters. You can go to Tuck, you go to Modugno, you go to Nate Stahl, you go to, when we're playing 3-game weekend, you can go to Ty Bothwell. We went to Ty to in that big at bat against Calarco one Sunday with 2 guys on. That was huge to have him come in and get that. Just his job was to get Calarco. And so the mid relief has been, to me, just as impressive as the starting pitching. Most teams have good starting pitching. Most teams are not running a guy with a 7.5 out there on the weekends to start. But for us is to be able to bridge when a guy's done in the 5th or 6th, he's done. He doesn't have to throw 120 pitches. And then we can get the ball to Litwicky at the back end and hopefully the ball game's over there. So I have a tremendous confidence in the bullpen. Saturday's blip was just that. It was a blip. That team's gonna put balls in play. We have to make plays. I thought there were some plays that we could have potentially gotten a glove on, and we didn't. And so when you have a really good offense and they put the ball in play, and sometimes those things happen. The pitching staff has certainly carried their weight this year. So one blip is certainly not going to change my mind in that. But I have a lot of confidence in the pen.
John, Tom, then Carl.
Just wanted to follow up on Litwicky. Did he actually hit 100 on the gun? Has he gotten there?
I haven't. I've seen like 99 point whatnot. So I shouldn't have said. You're right. I shouldn't have said 100.
Just making sure. I mean, that's a coveted mark when you get there. But then just wanted to, again, follow up a little more. You talk about the fastballs, the different variations. I'm thinking a guy who can throw near 100 would always want to just pour the same. gas down the alley, I guess. Is that something you had to work with him on? Is that a progression that he's gotten better focused on that
Yeah.
aspect in terms of having that different?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we first came in, he was coming off Tommy John, and he was a prolific high school player. He was a talented kid, and so he was coming off Tommy John. If you look at him, he's an open stride. His front leg is an open strider, right? And that's where a lot of his torque, his velocity. He's strong as an ox. I mean, he's a big, strong kid, but he creates a ton of separation in his front side and his arm, which is where a lot of that power comes from. When he first came in, he wanted to throw primarily a four-seam fastball, and he didn't throw this hard. He was, 91 to 93, maybe a 4 in there. And then kind of last year, he hit a couple of 95s. I was like, wow, he's throwing really, really hard. But it was primarily a four-seam fastball from an open stride position, which is going to be a reduced spin rate. Like, he's not going to have like the true 23, 24, 2,500 spin rate on it. But it's a really good way to throw a sinker. And so, he and Coach Parker went back and forth for a long time on the variation of the fastball. And finally, he and Coach Parker settled on throwing a primary sinker with his delivery. If you look at like Gabe is mobile and has a bit of an open an open gate or open stride a little bit, able to really get on the inside of the baseball, which is super effective for that pitch. And then as he became a primary sinker baller, then it was time to add back in. You can still have the four seam because you still need it every now and then, and adding the variation of those two pitches. So it really has been a 2 or 3 year progression to bring the whole thing together. But the fastball variations, the two of them, was honestly something that we were talking about as recently as a month before the season. If that was something that we could still do, and how can we use both of them effectively, and kind of watching the velocity start to climb. It was like, I've never seen Matt hit 96, 97, 98. It's like, holy cow. And you can have both of them. So it's been a really cool process to watch from the beginning, where it's like, I just want to be a primary four-seam guy because I throw hard. And it's like, well, that's just not necessarily what your body is going to do at its best all the time. It can be an effective weapon, but we have to have a variation of both. And Matt's been an incredible leader, an incredible worker, done such a great job. And so you're excited when anybody has success, but a kid like Matt, you're just like just nice to see good things happen to good people who have worked really, really hard and been through it all. Been through Tommy John, been through getting hit around a little bit, get through like not being a primary option to becoming the primary option. It's just that's the really, really fun part of coaching. That's the really fun part of it.
Tom, and then we'll wrap up with Carl.
Just to clear up one thing real quick. When you talk a lot about sinkers, but I mean, is this like the true sinker pitch, or is this more of a sinking fastball?
A sinking fastball. I mean, the sinking.
They were old school sinker ballers who were really threw over the top on it. But you're talking about more about just sinking fastballs, right?
Yes, yeah. So it's like if his four-seam fastball is, some guys throw a sinker harder than a four-seam, but like a two-seam. So, but instead of having like left to right movement, more depth movement. Yeah. So if you watch Gabe from behind, it's like a left-handed cutter from the right side. So trying to induce weak contact, less strikeout, but more weak contact. So some guys will throw like an east and west fastball with a little two-seam action to it. And we want more of like depth. We want the depth of the pitch, not just the east to west of it. But that's not a sinker in the standpoint. Like if his fastball was 93, it wouldn't be a pitch that was like 85, like a different variation of like an off-speed pitch. It's within 1 or 2 miles an hour of his four-seam fastball. And some guys even throw them harder. Some guys, for whatever reason, they throw those harder.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up for me. Yeah. Last question. Minnesota coming in, obviously they're struggling a bit. And when you look at the standings ahead of you and seeing Nebraska sweep, Michigan sweep, things like that, I know you try to play all this one game at a time, but you also go into this weekend knowing that this is probably best to win all three. I mean, can you look at it that way or no?
You can. I mean, you can look at it that way, and there's nothing we can do about it necessarily. And I know, like you said, it's like we all want to win one game at a time and play one pitch, and we all have our coach talk monikers and slogans, but there's just nothing we can do about. If I could say before the weekend started, we need to sweep this weekend or that weekend or whatever, or what have you, what I would do that every weekend, but it's a big weekend and we need to play well, mostly because we need to play well. Like we just need to play well because it's time to play well, and it's time to grow up, and it's time to begin to become the team that we envisioned ourselves being. Listen, I got COVID. It's on me. Like I got COVID. The coaching staff got COVID. It's been a crazy year. And there's a lot of moving pieces, but at a certain point in time, like it's just time to grow up, and it's time to toughen up, and it's time to play better baseball across the board. And we're doing those things. And I expect us to do those things. And I have great confidence in this team. And I have from the very beginning, even on the good weekends, even on the bad weekends, even when we don't play great. I still have confidence. I still believe in this team, and I still believe our best baseball is ahead of us. And I won't, you can't convince me otherwise. Not you, I'm saying in general. I can't be convinced otherwise. I just have too much belief in this team, and we're going to show up every day, and I'm going to coach them as hard as I possibly can. And we're going to work as hard as we possibly can. And I hope we play as well as we can this weekend. And then the next weekend and the next weekend, that's the only option. There's just, I read a lot, and you listen, Nick Saban said this, but the primary author of like the illusion of choice, there's just not that many options. Like we all think we have a bunch of options. There's just not that many options. And if you want to be good, it's time, you got to go and do it. And it's time for us to go and do it.
All right. Last one for Carl.
Just a very specific follow-up to the bullpen questions. You've been utilizing your middle bullpen typically in multiple innings, as opposed to like using all of them for an inning. Is that something you project? Is that just kind of the normal plan and project going forward with kind of these matchups that you've been talking about?
Yes, because when we pick the guy, like I don't necessarily go into the game, or Justin and I don't, with a specific plan. It's like, hey, who's up and who's down? That's about it. Okay. And then reading swings and feeling the moment. It probably feels a little bit hectic for the players at times. I know for me, it can feel a little bit hectic, and I don't like it, but it's proven to be the most effective because we do have a variety of options where going into the weekend, I would not have guessed that the sinker ballers would be that much more effective than the other guys. Nate Stahl was the first guy out of the pen. And so you thinking about that was, if I could go back and do it again, Nate's not as good of a matchup as some of the other guys were. So the reason that those guys go in more in length is because I'll always look at Justin and look at me and be like, is there someone better than this guy in this moment? And it's like, well, if this guy is the right guy for this team, then he needs to throw until he is no longer effective. And it's not just necessarily the matchup, the lefty or the righty. Ty Bothwell can pitch to both guys. The fastball plays up, the breaking ball is good enough. He can get in, he can get up, all those kind of things. Braden Scott can pitch to both righties and lefties. And so for us, until they begin to lose their stuff, we want to stay with them because we've decided that's the best matchup. Now, we may have been an inning late on Saturday. We may have been a batter late on Saturday, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe that was the best matchup, and they were just destined to eventually hit because good hitters eventually hit. But you just don't know. But that's a great question. We have tried to prepare guys to throw in shorter bursts. One guy, Braden Scott was in for one guy to face the lefty against Illinois. Ty was in this past weekend just to face Galarco. We had the guy behind him ready to go. So, but like you said, the reality for the 2 or 3 or 4 inning relief is just based on what we're reading from the swings in the beginning of the game. And does that guy give us the best win or the best chance to win? Until he doesn't, and then you get the next guy. So that's a great question.